All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Eric. To
Hey,
kick things
thank you for
off,
having me.
would love to just hear a little bit about yourself and also solidcore.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Josh. I'm Eric. I am the director of talent acquisition for a company called solidcore. We are a boutique fitness company who's rapidly growing. We specialize in strength and conditioning training. Our workout is 50 minutes, high intensity, low impact. And right now we are in upwards of almost 100 studios across the country right now.
That's awesome. And first of all, I got to ask, do you do any of the classes at solidcore? Are you a fitness guy yourself?
Yeah, they have drove me to my very first class. Interesting enough, I took with our founder, Ann Malum, and that was intense. Well, the most intense workout. I had to reevaluate. Like, do I need to really be working here? So, but it let me know like the energy, the passion, and the drive that even a client goes through, and our coaches that who we hire on to coach these classes is absolutely amazing because you have to have a great A experience to get through the workout and then really just want to come back for more. It just tells you like the fact that we're growing so fast, like how unique our workout is and how much people love it just because it's not the average workout where you feel like, I didn't get anything out of that.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's interesting because when I was on your LinkedIn before this, I saw you had some posts about fitness and hitting goals and about your classes. Like it wasn't all talent acquisition or posting job openings. So it seemed like that
Hmm.
was something you were passionate about as well, which is always great. You know,
Absolutely.
if you're recruiting for a company and you're passionate about the product or service, I think that's kind of a must, price of admission. So tell me a little bit about the talent acquisition team. I know you guys are growing fast. You're the director. What's the makeup of the team look like?
Yeah, we've grown so fast in this last year. Right now, I've hired just a new personnel on my team. I have a senior talent acquisition manager. Her name is Jenna. She's based here in DC, where I'm located at. I have another manager named Shannon. She's based in Chicago. And I have five recruiters who are spread across the country. I have Nina, who's in New York. I have Mandy, who is in Richmond, Virginia. Luis in DC. Delaney in DC. Brittany is in Chicago. And I also have Abby, who's a new recruiter as well. She's out there in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, great. So tell me, like, how many locations are you guys at right now?
Yeah, right now we're about 95. In the next 2 months, we'll be at 100. And we're set to open about uh, 15 to 18 more studios this year. Some more in New York, Seattle, LA, one coming to Nashville, San Diego, one's coming to Florida, Houston, New Jersey. Like we are rapidly expanding across the country, which is great. So
Did
mostly
you
East Coast and West Coast expansion.
got it? Did you guys start on the East Coast? Because it seems like most of your recruiting team is like East Coast, Midwest.
Yeah, yeah. Our
Okay.
very first studio was right here in DC called Abs Morgen. We just celebrated like the thousand thousandth class anniversary, and some people have taken like upward of between 200 and 500 classes out of the studio alone. It's crazy.
That's amazing. And how long have you been there?
This company was founded around 2013 from Ann. She kind of started a program called like On Your Feet, and it kind of just expanded from there. Where she was really just bent on building a community and outreaching. And she started like a small like running club, and it's grown into like developing our what we call our Sweat Lana, our reformer machine, and really just bringing it back to community of like becoming a stronger version of yourself. That's like something we represent in our motto. Like coming to our company, we don't talk about losing weight. That could be a goal, but it's more about come become the strongest version of yourself. So it's really you challenging yourself when you come to that studio and that machine.
Love it. I love that mission. So tell me, like, what are the goals for this year? I know you guys are growing a lot, but maybe put some numbers to it.
Yeah, we have hefty goals. Like out of the first quarter, just for our coaches, and I'll kind of explain how we recruit the different things. We recruit, I would say, four different levels. We have most of our part-time coaches. That's the majority of our fleet in our company. We have about 800 part-time coaches across the fleet. Then we have our head coaches. Above that is our area managers and our directors of studios, and then all of our headquarters staff. So from our coaching fleet alone, we're probably last year we recruited about 460 to 80 people. This year we're going to probably be somewhere between 500 to 800 just coaches alone. But we've already put 100 coaches in January, just alone in January. So we have a goal of 250 coming out of the first quarter.
That's that's a lot going on,
It's a
with the especially with the
lot.
size of your team as well. So, are you
Yes.
coordinating, with the hiring process? Are you coordinating with managers at each of the locations, or how does that work? What's the collaboration like?
Yes. Yeah, we collaborate sometimes daily, but for sure weekly about hiring needs of the area. And we try to get far ahead, especially like we know if it's an area that has a new studio coming open or if it's an area that like we need backfill for current existing coaches. So we try to predict like how many do we need coming up and we start the process as early as possible. Um, you know, uh, get the message out and then start sending out our Spark Hire invites to get that recorded interview on file.
Got it. And then as far as the roles that you're recruiting for, is it mostly coaches?
That's a majority. Yes, majority coaches. That's going to be the bulk of our, recruitment efforts because we have such a high volume that we bring in every month.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it probably presents you guys with a number of challenges because A, you guys are growing really fast, so you need to hire a lot of people
Mhm.
just to keep up with the growth. But there's also pressure to move fast because you need a coach to run the classes, right? So it's like, a huge
Absolutely.
part of your company is the people. So if your team can't get them and can't get them fast enough, then obviously that's going to impact the bottom line. So, I guess tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that that presents for you.
Sure. I think so. Multiple challenges. One being that in existing markets like a DC, a New York, a LA, there's a vast amount of fit pros in the area where we can, source from. Or if we already have studios in that market and we open up a new studio, they kind of already know solidcore. It's more challenging when we come to a new market that we're not currently in and nobody knows about solidcore or the population is a little bit less dense. Opening up a studio and finding those fit pros to get the message out about us, and then also screening down to find our style of coach is really unique because it's not a apples to apples where any fit pro really can't coach our style because our coaches they don't really like demonstrate coach where some people stand up on a box and they demonstrate the movements. We do more like coach on a microphone, and we just like going through cues of performance of how to coach our style. And so we're really just cueing clients versus like, let me show you how to do this movement. So we have to have those coaches that are energetic, that's comfortable talking on the microphone, that's comfortable cueing, giving encouraging feedback. So a lot of times we have a lot of candidates that might apply and they just don't fit what we're looking for. Even if they've been in fitness for 20 years, they might not be that particular type of style that we're looking for. So it presents another challenge of finding the right fit for our brand.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's tons of folks that probably have the credentials, right? Like they're a personal trainer or they've been doing
Mm-hmm.
coaching in another program. But for you guys, there's a very specific energy, personality,
Mm-hmm.
communication style that is ingrained in the culture of your guys' class and your guys' business. As evident, like you said, from when you took that initial class with the founder, you felt the energy. So that's something that you
Yes.
need to consistently look
Yeah.
for when you're recruiting people for the business. Is it pretty competitive for you? There's so many different types of classes and programs and gyms. I feel like even in my hometown, there's a new class or program popping up, every few months. So
Mm-hmm.
are you competing with all those programs for coaches as well?
Yes, it is. It's very competitive, especially certain markets like you see, like a market like Seattle is very competitive. California, New York, so it's very competitive. That some of these other fitness companies have been around a lot longer than us, so they're a little bit more popular by name. But what we found that when people actually are introduced to our workout, they like, wow, this is so unique and different from, most people that are out there. They gravitate towards our workout because it is very unique of style and you get a full body workout every time and you can never master our type of workout where just say you went to the gym for 6 months straight, doing a certain program, you might say, I've kind of, plateaued here now. I'm not, get as much out of workout. For us, a client can come in day one and out of class number 500, they feel the exact same. They're like, wow, this is still kicking my butt.
Yeah, every single time you're feeling new muscles you never knew that you had.
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
so when you're competing for this talent with these other programs, what are some of the things, obviously, like you mentioned, the program is very unique, but what are, other things that you guys use as differentiators to attract folks to work at solidcore versus somewhere else?
Sure. Great question. I think, for one, your brand should speak for itself. So we try to, do a good job of branding ourselves as far as like introducing people to what solid core is. And number two, we really just focus on community. And a lot of times you see like other fitness companies, they're just hiring, and, they're really not a part of the community. And we're the opposite. We actually really try to be a staple in the community for those studios that we're located. So we not only like bridge community events, but we make sure we try to participate in local events that are going on. So like our local coaches, they are a part of the community. So, we want people that are taking class to resonate with what's going on and not just be like, hey, I have a class here. It's more like, oh, that's this coach. That's Josh. He's a coach and he also does this in the community, So I think that's
Yeah.
really the foundation of our program where people feel like they're coming to a community versus like, I'm just going to take a class.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that because, like you mentioned earlier, it's not about going to class to lose weight. Like that's not what you guys are pitching, right? Like you're pitching, becoming the
Correct.
best version of yourself. So there's like a bigger vision and bigger mission than, what you might hear
Mm-hmm.
your typical fitness class say. And so I think that's interesting then the tie in to even the way your coaches participate in the community. They're not just coaches at the local gym. They're participating in local community events. And that
Mm-hmm.
helps you, in turn get clients as well. But, it's a more holistic approach, I think, from a branding
Correct.
standpoint.
Yeah, correct. And then people, what we found that like our client base that comes to solidcore, you'd be amazed at the stories that you hear because it's not like you said. Some people are coming to achieve like professional weight loss goals or professional fitness goals, but a vast majority you hear because they resonate with our coaches in a different way, where they were abused or they were alcoholics back in the day or they were body shamed or they had all these different issues of they get into an accident, they have a disability, and this is a great workout where it doesn't put strain on their muscles as far as like high impact. So many different reasons why people love solid core. You'll shed a tear literally when you hear those stories of why people come to us. That 50 minutes while they're on that sweat line of machine, our reformer machine, all those problems go away for them. And that's what they really just feel like is them in the machine. Our lights are low as far as our workouts. It's like dim space, neon lights are on, the music's loud, and this is you in the machine. And I think people like just love the fact that you're getting the workout and you just like really lost in that 50 minutes where like, this is your refuge of away from problems and, and you're getting a great workout at the end of that. By the time you leave, you feel great. You're like, wow, that's like therapeutic for my soul. So that's why I think people resonate with our brand once they kind of get exposure to it.
Amazing. So let's jump over, talk a little bit about the hiring process itself. Can you give me an idea? Maybe we'll focus on the coaches because that's your, highest volume role. Just give
Sure.
me an idea of like end to end, what are the different stages?
Sure. Once we post a job out, people apply through our platform, through our either job site or external sites like our Indeed or LinkedIn, or like for us promoting it out there on social media or Eventbrite or some of that nature. But once they come through our system, we view their resume, take a quick peek at their background, and then they like a potential candidate. We will send them a Spark Hire invite for that particular job post to say like, hey, we like what we saw. We would like for you to advance to the next stage in the process and complete this one-way interview. And we've gotten with Spark Hires personnel to kind of tailor that down to best practices of, those type of questions that we were asking to make it more, easier where people would fill out that process. And I want to say we have a pretty, really good completion rate coming out of that. Once they complete the Spark Hire, our recruiters will review the videos. And part of that video, they do submit like a 2-minute audition of them coaching the exercise or coaching something of their choice. So we can kind of like evaluate those like soft skills that we talked about, personality, energy, those things we talked about. And from there, if we like them, we will pass that over to the hiring manager to say like, hey, we got a great candidate. We would like for you to view this workout or this video audition. And they would view it. If they like it, they would say, yes, let's bring them on board. And we will submit them an offer letter to, join our team.
Oh, wow. So you guys really are streamlining it then from, you get the resume, you're validating, okay, they've got the credentials and, on paper, the skills needed to do the job. And then you go straight to the Spark Hire one way. And then from there, hiring manager
Mm-hmm.
at the location can actually make a decision on, wow. Okay. So that's
Absolutely.
really, really
Yes.
fast. So how are you
Yes.
in the one-way interview? Like I know you've got the 2-minute audition. What are some other questions or what are things you're trying to evaluate in that interview as well?
Yeah, we're trying to get a good fit. Like if they're a coach, going back on some of the things I said, we want to know like, what is their time like? What are some of the previous experience they have as far as fitness wise or job wise or leadership wise? We also want to know like how well do they build out community? That's an important part. Like I talked about, like we want to know, we put you on a schedule, like how well will you fill up your classes or, are you really, dedicated to being a part of this community? Because that's really what's going to resonate with the local community. Um, we also ask them about availability, due to, anytime you're coaching in fitness, that's a huge part of it because you might have the right fit, you might be everything we're looking for, but you might not be available for the times that we need you to coach, and our coaches have to coach up to a minimum of 6 classes per week, and they have to have at least one day of weekend availability. So a lot of times that bumps people out of contention because they don't have that weekend availability, or like I'm only available on Mondays from 6 to 9, and maybe all that schedule's full. So there's a lot of different nuances that we have to consider, like where we can't bring as many people on as we want to because all those factors have to line up. So we try to capture that all in the video to kind of identify like potential challenges or like anything we might be able to work with before we decide to move forward to the next stage.
And then with the hiring managers, are you collaborating with them on the questions that you want to ask, or are you using the same ones across all different locations?
No, well, a little bit of both. We've modified it down where the first couple iterations where we created the Spark hires, we got feedback from them saying like, hey, who makes the questions? I'm like, well, essentially you can make it. You're the hiring manager, so we can take what you need to ask and we can modify it. We did a couple modifications where it fits the needs to get what we're looking for. Some have been more specific in some markets, like some saying like, hey, can you put in here like a New York market? They might say, based on our market is volatile, we really need people with coaches to have also strong sales skills. Can you mention something about being able to sell products or sell, packages and services? Some like in North Dakota may be a little bit different. And then sometimes they're even more leery of technology. So we have to cut down the questions from like, to like 2 or 3, or, like, hey, they might scare them off because we found that they were not completing the videos as much as some of the other locations. So we had to kind of scale some of the questions back to say like, so it's not so intimidating because they might not want to spend a lot of time on the computer. So based on the markets, we do have to make a lot of modifications based on what we, view as far as like what could be potential roadblocks to getting the most coaches through the system and also completing the videos.
Got it. And what's the typical hiring timeline for you guys look like?
It's reduced greatly, especially with, there's so many other, steps past that. Like as far as like once you go to the hiring managers and they submit the video, then we have to get back on with them at a certain time with all the people we are hiring for their round and do what's called an expectations call to get them prepared for training. And then they have to do like pre-training homework and stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I would say like before we implemented Spark Hire, the time to hire for like a coach was over 100 days. So it took us 100 days to find people on average and get them through the process and say, have them sign an offer letter. The last time I checked, when I pulled it for the end of last year, like, that got reduced down to about 67 days or something close to that nature. So that's significant change. I think that's more like, being a streamlined process. The feedback we've gotten from Spark Hire from the coach's side has been outstanding. They said it was simple. They knew what to expect. And I love that it gives us a time capsule also from before we weren't using Spark Hire, we were doing phone screens. So that means every single person that applied, we would have to call them and ask these questions on the phone. And then we have to have them go back again and submit a virtual video that we would keep on like a Google Drive. And then we have to type all those notes up, take that video, send it to the hiring manager. And it was just taking a lot of process. And then 2 or 3 months later, we didn't hire somebody, we would forget what happened. We're like, man, I know we talked to somebody. Like we have to go back and find their file, or find the notes on them. And I think this gives us a perfect time capsule of like, hey, we talked to this person 6 months ago. Let's go back and review the video and see if they've made any corrections, have them resubmit a new one and see if they're ready to go. And we do that pretty often. Like there might be somebody that we interview with and they're not ready to go. We'll have them submit another video like a couple weeks after they've taken class. And then it's like night and day almost.
That's awesome. And with the recruiting team and with hiring managers, have you guys set any type of deadlines on, okay, recruiters, once the interview comes in, you have X days to watch it and move it on to a hiring manager, and then hiring manager, you have Y days to determine, do we want to make this person an offer or not?
Yeah, we're trying to get there better. Yeah, we're trying to get there. It's easier in some markets than others. And we have a lot of new area managers that have come in and out, and then, their schedules are very busy. So it's not as exact as I would like it. We try to put like a 72-hour deadline from the time the Spark Hire comes to the hiring manager, another 72 hours from the hiring managers to make a decision. It's flexible within there, but for the most part, they give it to us within a reasonable time. Not always 72 hours, but it does happen like probably within a week. I would say like a week goes by, we don't hear something, I'll be pinging them like, hey, remember that person that we need to get to training? Like, have you thought about the decision process? And also it definitely helps, like with the having a spark hire. One thing we didn't have consistently was a standardized evaluation process. So it was more like, say, if you were a candidate and I'm an area manager, I'm viewing your video, I might like, you okay, but I don't think that you can do a good job building a community. Like, well, how do you know that? So we found that there was like a lot of small personal biases making the decision
Mm.
process before we had this. And I think, having everybody to be able to view the video, it helps us remove some of that bias, because I can go back and say like, hey, let's talk about Josh. What didn't you like about him again? Like, let's both look at this video together, and then we can make that decision and say, are you willing to give him a chance or not? Or what can he fix if he submits another video? What does he need to work on? So we are a very feedback based organization. We're able to give candidates like, hey, we like coaches with better energy, this and this and this. Take a couple classes, go back, submit another video, show us their energy, and then try to improve, versus like, I just didn't like Josh.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, one of the problems oftentimes with like traditional screening methods that happen in silos, right? Like even a phone interview with a recruiter. Number one, yeah, the recruiter might be making decisions just based on, did I like that person or not? But there's other things that come into play, even things like what time is the recruiter talking to that person during the day, right? Like a candidate experience at 9 a.m. with the recruiter, it could be very different from 5 p.m. with that same person because they're ready to get out the door. It's after a long day of meetings, whatever it is. And so that could impact some of their decision making. So the collaboration, I think, is really, really important to make sure that you're validating decisions from multiple angles versus just what one person thinks or their opinion. And then also those outside factors that could impact that opinion as well. So,
and it gives us a small capture of what we probably didn't have before. Like you said, if I look at 10 videos from the area manager and I notice that every video they're declining this person for that, I can go back and say like, hey, this person has a tendency to say no for this area. I can make sure we kind of, make sure that the candidates are aware that this is the area they're looking at. Or, it could be the opposite, where they consistently marking an area that's not, like something is not even there. And so we can kind of come back and correct and say like, hey, we noticed you passing on candidates, but there's not really real criteria that you're using. And I like kind of put a check mark by this person, say like, you as the hiring manager, maybe you need to look at some of your evaluation process, maybe you're being a little bit too biased, So I think that helps both ways, where, we don't want to tell somebody they don't know what they're doing, but it does help having the data to self-correct and review over a period of time, hiring trends.
Yeah, and it helps you help them, right? Because when you can go back to them and say, hey, I noticed, you're rejecting people because of reason X, like how can we help, make sure that we're getting you the right candidates that you wouldn't reject because of X, or maybe there's another question that we need to ask in the interview to help you better assess folks. Like maybe we're not giving you all the information you need to make the right decision, and therefore it's a gray area for you. So I think that's a really good point, is you can use this, and when you have structure to your interview process, you can actually iterate on it. When there is no structure, you don't know what's working, you don't know what's not working. And so this gives you the opportunity to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and then outside of like coach jobs, just like communicating with other, just personnel out there on like LinkedIn and stuff like that. And right now, it's the job market is not strong as it was like maybe like a couple of years ago, like with a lot of mass layoffs going on. Candidates want to know, like, there's a person I talked to and I just felt bad, so I just reached out to her and tried to help her, like take a look at her resume. And she's like, I've been unemployed so long, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I can't even get to the second stage of the interview process. And then even after that, like the hiring managers won't follow back up when they're passing on her or give her feedback. So I'm like, that's a problem. I said, let me take a look at your resume. Let me give you some tips, So a lot of times I think that as a hiring manager, whether you're going to pass on a person or not, I think they deserve to know, like, you don't have to be detailed and descriptive of like, what can they do next time to maybe stand out better as a candidate? Because anybody that search for a job, you know how stressful and strenuous it is, like job, application, and you just told no. And sometimes you don't hear nothing at all. You're just like, I don't want to talk to this person. I'm not even going to say nothing to the person. I think every person deserves at least to understand like they're being passed on, and maybe some context around of how they can, improve, or what they're looking for as a company, so they can kind of reset themselves for the next interview process. And I think that's a huge thing missing from the employment market in itself.
Yeah, that's great you guys do that. And I think, again, that goes back to some of the core values that I'm hearing from you guys around, taking the more holistic approach and being part of the community. And, I think delivering that type of candidate experience where you're getting back to folks and you're giving them feedback and you're coaching them, along the way,
Mm-hmm.
I think is really great and reflects really well on your brand. And, maybe when they make some of those tweaks to their job search process and they come back and do an interview for you later on, you help them, advance to now where they're actually somebody that's going to work for you guys. So that's great. So
Absolutely.
I'm really interested because when I was on your LinkedIn, I saw you spent
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of time in military recruiting before
Sure.
solidcore. So I'd love to just know, like, what made you make the switch and like what are some of the big
Yeah.
differences, or maybe there's a lot of similarities between the two. I'd just love to hear you compare and contrast those
Yeah.
experiences.
Absolutely. Always shout out to Army and the Army Recruiting Command. That's my first love and first home. I started off as a military police. I did that for about 8 years, and then I switched over to recruiting, which I did that for almost like 20, like 17, 18 years of my career. When I was at my transition point early in mid 2021, like coming out of COVID, when I was thinking about my retirement plan, initially, I was just going to get a government job like most military people. It's a lot easy to do is, walk right into one. And I thought about corporate. I said, let me just look at corporate and see if there's something I might want to dip my toe into. Heard mixed bag about it, as far as like the structure and the camaraderie versus being in the military versus outside. But I said, let me not shortchange myself and just see if there's opportunity. When I came across solidcore, what really attracted me to this company was I saw that it was a small but growing company at the time. And I thought like, something I like, where sometimes people might say, oh, that's small, you might not get paid as much, but I love the opportunity where I can maybe bring an outside lens in that may be different and have some ideas, and also be part of the, whatever's happening with growth. I always try to liken it to, imagine if you're the person that put one of the bricks in the Great Pyramid, and now we're in 2023, you get to look at, wow, look at this. And you could be like, Josh, remember that brick? That was my idea. This brick was mine. And most companies that are more established, you don't get to do that. You might already come to something that's already built, and you have ideas that things that need to change, but you don't have a voice to change them. Nobody wants to be in that position. So here at solidcore, it is so, I'll tell you how openly crazy it is with ideas. Our CEO, Brian Myers, he does a great job of just really investing back into to the employees. He rewards people every month. I don't care if you just started there. I don't care what level you are. If you're a VP, if you're a coach, part-time person, he gives people like $1,000 to $2,000 a month if they come up with an idea that drives the business forward any type of way. You can come up with an idea for sales, you can come up with an idea for retention and recruiting, you can come up with an idea for a door code that lets people come in quicker. Like whatever it is, like that lets you know that everybody in that company has a voice, and that makes everybody feel valued. Like I can submit an idea and potentially, whether I get paid or not, I know somebody's listening and they're taking my ideas versus other companies. You don't even get to meet your CEOs in most companies. You don't even know who they are besides a picture on a website, So he's very involved, and I really love that about our leadership team. He might pop in and take a class with you, might take you to lunch, like he's very active, and you see him walk around the office all day long. And also yesterday, our founder was in, Ann Malum, who founded us. She was in the office yesterday, just popping around, talking to people. So that's really energetic when you can just really have FaceTime anytime with your leadership team that at that level is just amazing.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming you're using that. I mean, you sold me on working there, right? So I'm assuming that's part of the message when you're talking to potential candidates.
Yes. I speak from the heart. I don't sugarcoat. I tell them like, a lot of people ask that question of why I joined. I'm honest with them as far as like what I feel as far as like being in a great culture, and also, not just coming in, but we're, coming in and having ideas, and we want you to not just think about the now, think about 5-10 years from now and come up with something that we don't have in place. Or don't be scared to try something that may not work. Like let's try it, see if it works. Like most places you don't get the opportunity. It's like you can't try things, we can't afford it. Or if you try it and you fail, now we're gonna punish you for that because now you wasted time and money. We are totally opposite. We are like, we might be in the transformation phase where let's try something different. Which is one of the reasons how I got Spark Hire. I went to my boss and I told her when I was looking at my processes, and I was saying like, I want to see if there's a way I can cut the interview process in time. And when I first mentioned it, she was like, I don't know. That sounds kind of weird. And then by the time I got with the Spark Hire team and I came up with a case of how it was going to save us time and save money, like person hours for each recruiter, she was like, let's try it. Let's do it. And it's been a huge success. It's like she telling like Spark Hire was probably the best thing you did in 2022. She was like, that was a great idea that you implemented that at the time you did, because we have all this hiring that we're doing now. And so it's those opportunities where most time, if she would just said no and not been open minded, I would have been, you probably wouldn't even be talking to me right now. I'll be doing phone screen right now with a coach, like, you know, 5 hours later, you know, into the day of 100 phone screens later, you know, so those are very important.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I feel like, in I'm just drawing so many parallels, and I can see why, you have so much passion talking about solidcore and why you love working there because, coming from the military where you were for, like you said, 17 or 18 years, big thing about the military is, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, right? And I feel as I'm talking to you, I feel that from you about the solid core, what it's like to be an employee there. And so I can see why, while it's like, whoa, from the military to this fast growing, workout program company, they seem so different. But I think really like industry company, it really doesn't matter. It's really about like, you're motivated by the vision, the mission, like, and the values of the organization. And so I draw a lot of parallels there. So that's cool and really interesting. What about on the recruiting side? Like, is there anything that you feel like, recruiting for the military really prepared you for in this high volume environment that you're in now at solidcore?
Yeah, recruiting, especially in the United States Army Recruiting Command, it is, it's fast paced as well. So I think the biggest difference is from that side of it is it's high volume too. And you're dealing with people in their time. So that's kind of similar in a way. But then that side is more layered, especially like when you are somebody's making a decision to join a service. Now you're dealing with a person, you have to deal with family sometimes. It's not even restricted to age. You'd be surprised where somebody that's 24 years old, graduated college, getting ready to make a decision. Their parents had to be there. Their grandparents had to be there. And I had to get permission. I had to convince everybody that, hey, this is the best decision for this person that's doesn't really want to leave home at 24, and it's like, so it doesn't matter if they're 18, 17 or 24, 34, like spouses, wives. So I think the biggest part is what I always related to in the Army is making sure that my goal is the same, that my job is to not convince you, but I'm here to help you. Like either I can help you or I can't help you. But if you're here to talk to me about helping you, then I really got good advice for you, like, so you have to be open-minded to that. And I treat the candidates the same way. Like, I'm trying to help them achieve their goal, whether it's become a fitness professional, whether you just get into it or you recruit for any of our headquarters roles, you want to, come into this starting off, you want to be a VP one day. Like I want to help you achieve your goal. That's how I approach it, And if it's not the right fit for me, that's why I always extend myself outside of that. It's like, hey, follow me on LinkedIn. If I can help you out anyway, refer you to somebody that's hiring or give you some tips or something like that for the next thing, then I make myself available because I truly want to help people. And I think that's where, if people did that enough, then the business everything will drive itself, So when people join the Army, it's structured, but it's not as structured as people think. Those people, those young men and women that join, they join because they like the recruiter that's recruiting for them most of the time. They don't always join like they hear the benefits and stuff. Those are cool. 90% of the time, they like that person that they sat down to them and they saw themselves in that person. So it's no difference out here in the corporate world. You might kind of know what you want to do, but they're going to like the person presented because that represents that company's culture. If you talk to somebody that's crap, then you're going to think the culture is crap. You're not going to want to work there no matter how good the pay is or the benefits or anything like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that approach. And yeah, I mean, just from talking to you, you're such a great ambassador for the company you work for. And I could see why you guys are having so much success because I think, you're really setting the tone from, the recruiting culture perspective. And I think that's really important. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, even in sales, right? Like people buy from people. If you can connect and if you can help somebody and are truly there and are authentic, like people, that resonates with people. And so I think it's the same thing in recruiting where, if you're connecting with folks and they really feel that you have their best interests in mind, like you're here to help them, right? Like you said, even in some scenarios where it doesn't work out, you're offering to coach them up or give them tips or point them in the right direction. And so I think that, really reflects well on you, but also the recruiting team and then, the company. So I think that's a great approach to have. I feel like, that's just amazing advice. I got to call it there. Like, I think this has been an awesome episode. I think that's like a great, point to wrap up at, and a great takeaway for everybody that's going to listen to this. And, I really appreciate your time. It was great talking with you. I got to try some solid core workout classes myself. So I got to find the nearest location.
Come get the shakes. We call it come get the shakes. You will always come back at some point in time. Trust me.
I'm in. All right. Well, I'll let you know when I get in there and how it goes. So thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it, Eric.
Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate you.